Good Wednesday afternoon to you. I hope you're having a great day. Thanks for joining us on Sports4CLE. Browns getting ready for that Monday night matchup in Pittsburgh against the Steelers game. They have to win. They'll need a little help as well on Sunday, primarily from the Kansas City Chiefs. We will talk plenty about the Browns and the AFC North, and that's where we begin. News keeps coming in of guys coming back. Take a look. Greg Newsome, who has not been available for the last couple of weeks, tweeting this out. The Cam Newton shot with "I'm back," meaning Greg Newsome expects to be good to go Monday night in Pittsburgh against the Steelers. So the Browns, in all likelihood, as healthy as they're going to be for really the last several weeks. They're going to be more healthy than they have been. We'll get to what needs to happen for the Browns to have a shot at the AFC North in just a little bit. But let's welcome in Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer, as well as cleveland.com. Mary Kay, are we correct in assuming the Browns look to be on track to be really as healthy as they've been in a couple of months?
Yes, absolutely. And as Greg Newsome pointed out there, he can come back, and a lot of other NFL players can come back a lot quicker than they thought they could, because the NFL adopted the CDC's new guidelines that state that you only need to be in isolation for 5 days instead of 10. Therefore, you're going to see a lot of guys coming back that otherwise might not have played this Sunday or this Monday. And that's great news for the Browns and for the NFL and for everybody else.
Well, yesterday, Joel Bitonio talked about just where the Browns are relative to the AFC North and kind of moving forward and how that affects their thinking. Here's Joel Bitonio.
Yeah, we need some help, and that's unfortunate. You always want to control your own destiny. So we definitely need some help. And I think, we're playing Monday night, so we'll have an idea of what kind of happens this weekend. But the most important thing is for us to get a win against Pittsburgh. Like they're right there in it. The whole division is kind of right there. And, I think that's the most important thing is obviously we need help and we appreciate the help, but we got to handle our business. And that's really the main thing.
And Mary Kay, that's all that they can control right now is they have to beat the Steelers. And then thinking forward, we'll get into some of the scenarios a little bit. But from what you've heard, the approach seems to be correct. The health seems to be moving in the right direction. So there are some signs of some good things, hopefully, Monday in Pittsburgh.
Yes, absolutely. In terms of them handling their own business, and as you mentioned, we will get into those possibilities a little bit later in the show so we can kind of make sure that people understand what has to happen and what could go down on Sunday and Monday here. But just in terms of them getting as healthy as they can possibly be for this game, it's looking pretty good for them. It's really almost like they got their COVID outbreak out of the way early enough that for these final two games that are really now must-win games for them, they should have most of their guys back, and that's really good. The two guys that I'm keeping an eye on will be Kareem Hunt and Troy Hill, because those guys, even though they have been activated off COVID-19, they're still suffering from some injuries. Kareem has an ankle, Troy Hill has a knee. They were not at practice yesterday, so we'll have to see if they're going to be good to go. And if they can get those two guys back, it's looking really good.
Yeah, and the extra day would, in theory, help them, too, because it is, it's knees and ankles and those kind of things that the extra rest would, in theory, help. All right, so here's a tweet, and this is what the Browns need to have happen. First and foremost, Kansas City has to beat the Bengals. If the Bengals win, that eliminates the Browns and clinches the AFC North for Cincinnati. The Rams have to beat the Ravens, or the Ravens have to lose next week, and the Browns must beat the Steelers. And then, that would set up the potential with the winner-take-all game against Cincinnati. So the Browns have to beat the Steelers, have to beat the Bengals. They need the Ravens to lose one, and they need the Chiefs to beat the Bengals. And again, Mary Kay, none of that is really out of the realm of possibility. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but it isn't like you're expecting some sort of ridiculous upset to happen either.
Exactly. And that's why I wrote a column, a few days ago, on Sunday when the AFC games had been played, saying that it's not as far-fetched as you might think for the Browns to actually come through and win the AFC North. Now, is it likely? Right now, it doesn't seem likely, but it's definitely possible. And here are some of the reasons why. First of all, the Pittsburgh Steelers, they're beatable. I mean, they are definitely beatable. And, for a number of reasons. And one of the main reasons I believe that is because the Browns defense is playing incredibly well, and they're getting as many as 6 guys back, 6 starters back for this game. Guys like Jadeveon Clowney, Malik McDowell, Ronnie Harrison, John Johnson III, Greg Newsome, Troy Hill. I mean, if they get all of those guys back, this is a defense that almost went into Green Bay and defeated Aaron Rodgers and the Packers, despite the fact that Baker Mayfield threw 4 interceptions. So that's really saying something. They pretty much shut them down in the second half. So that's why I think that that the Steelers are beatable. But there are things to consider, including the fact that it is likely Ben Roethlisberger's last game in Heinz Field. It's always hard to win in Heinz Field, especially for the Cleveland Browns. And, they're going to have a lot of intensity for that football game. They're going to want to give Ben Roethlisberger a proper send-off. Now, who knows if those players will know for sure or not if it's his last game. I mean, he might give them the win one for the Gipper speech before the game. Maybe he's saving it for that moment to help them get really fired up for what for them could also be an opportunity to win the AFC North. So that's a huge factor heading into this game, the fact that it could be Big Ben's last game. But then when you look ahead to the Bengals game, people are like, oh, well, look what they just did to the Ravens. And, obviously, they're hot and they're rolling and maybe they're unbeatable. Well, they're really not unbeatable, I don't think, for the Cleveland Browns. Once again, why? Because of the Cleveland Browns defense. In the 41-16 victory over the Bengals, the Browns picked off Joe Burrow twice, took the ball away 3 times, and sacked him 5 times. Some teams match up better against other teams than others, and I think that the Browns have a tendency to match up pretty well against the Bengals from a Browns defense, Bengals offense standpoint. And if they think that they're playing the Ravens defense that they beat up on last week, they will have a rude awakening.
Yeah, and the flip side of it is the Bengals are still very young, so let's see how they handle, being the hunted, if you will. Right now, they're the odds-on favorite to win the AFC North. They really only need to win one of their final 2 games to win the North. Let's see how the young Bengals handle the headiness and the pressure of that. For the Browns, this game against Steelers, it's really an elimination game. Whoever wins this, if the Bengals lose, still has a chance to win the division. The loser of it has no chance. Here is what Denzel Ward expects the atmosphere to be like with that Steelers game Monday night in Heinz Field.
I think it's going to be a playoff atmosphere. I mean, that's the type of game that it is. We could go in there and focus all on Pittsburgh, and we got to go in and try to get a win. But, I know it's going to be a crazy atmosphere, though.
What are your memories like of playing Ben? If I'm right, I think you got off to a great start against him.
Yeah. My first rookie game, remember going against Antonio Brown, getting 2 interceptions on Ben. So that'd definitely be nice to repeat that this next game. But main focus is going in and doing our job and trying to get a win. It's a lot of excitement, but like you said, the main thing, we got to take care of our business and do what we're supposed to do. And then everything else, take care of itself come the end of the year.
So, Mary Kay, we've already talked about it. This is, in essence, a playoff game. The next 2 regular season games are playoff games for the Browns.
Well, you're right about that, but we have to keep one thing in mind, and that is the fact that by the time the Browns get to Pittsburgh, it could essentially be over for them in terms of making the playoffs. So the only way that it remains an absolute must-win game for them to make the playoffs is if the Bengals lose to the Chiefs and if the Ravens lose to the Rams. Now, why are those 2 things within the realm of possibility? Because both of those opponents are 11-4. The Kansas City Chiefs have won 8 straight games. Now, both of those games are at home for the Ravens and for the Bengals, but still, it's going to be a really, really tough out for the Bengals to try to beat those surging Chiefs. They've won 8 straight. They are as hot as they can be. Travis Kelce is coming back for this game. I mean, they beat the Steelers down 36-10, even without Travis Kelce. So now they've got their number 1 or number 2 go-to guy back. It's always Tyreek and Travis. So they're going to have him back. It's going to be a really, really difficult victory for the Bengals to achieve. Same thing for the Ravens. The Ravens are completely decimated with injuries this season, and they've got the Rams coming to town. Now, it's at home. That should help them. They might possibly have Lamar Jackson back, but he's still struggling with that ankle injury that he hurt against the Cleveland Browns. So who knows if he'll even be himself. But you never know. If he can get something going with Marquise Brown, with Mark Andrews, sometimes games get out of hand in a certain way. But those guys are so beat up in the secondary. So, there is a good chance that the Ravens are going to lose and that the Bengals are going to lose. But if they don't, if the Bengals win over the Chiefs, then I don't want to say that it's completely meaningless, but it just is not going to have the same punch for the Browns to try to go into Pittsburgh.
Yeah, fair enough. And the other thing to keep in mind, the Chiefs are still trying to lock up the number 1 seed in the AFC, which is the only one that gets that 1-week bye. So the Chiefs have plenty to play for. They're still chasing that bye, that week off, if you will, the first week of the playoffs. So a meaningful game for Kansas City as well.
Yeah, and that's important. I mean, if they didn't have anything to play for and they had everything locked up, at that point, then, sometimes you start to rest your starters and you don't know exactly who's going to show up in that game. But that's not going to happen. The Bengals are not going to get that lucky. They're going to have a full complement of players, and they're going to come in there, like you said, with so much to play for, wanting that bye week. And I think it's going to be a pretty good matchup, because I do think that if the Bengals are on top of their game, then they should be able to, get into a little bit of a shootout with the Chiefs. But I don't know. I mean, the Chiefs are so strong right now that they almost seem unbeatable.
Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer and cleveland.com, and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. On the other side of the break, Dan Orlovsky tells us what he thinks of the Browns season to date so far. We'll also head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. Sports for CLE. I'll be right back. Stay with us.
Welcome back. Back to new friends, new classroom, and learning new things. Back to wearing shoes, man, like real shoes. Back to rushing to class. Back to having questions. Lots of questions. Back to vending machine dinners. Back to too much caffeine, too late at night, but feeling like it was a night well spent. Back to pursuing your dreams and taking control of your future. Come back to go forward. Try C, where futures begin.
Browns and Steelers Monday night, Heinz Field, as the Browns try to keep the playoff hopes alive. Need some help, obviously, as well. Dan Orlovsky on ESPN's NFL Live talked about the Browns season so far and what he has seen.
The question is simple. The answer may not be. Who has been the most disappointing team in the NFL this season?
Yeah, I think it's the Cleveland Browns. I've felt that way for the better part of 2 months. This was a football team that was in the divisional round playoffs last year, pushed Kansas City to the brink, and was really a 3rd and 14 scramble by Chad Henne away from advancing. And for the great majority of that roster that was brought back, they added a ton of talent to. In their secondary, first-round pick Greg Newsome, John Johnson comes over, Troy Hill comes over, they signed Jadeveon Clowney. So you're talking about a defense that was not great last year, but they added not only talent, but good players, good locker room guys. And then the offense, for the most part, was brought back. And both of those units have failed that football team at different parts this year. They lost 3 games when they scored 30 points. They had multiple games when they scored in the single digits. So for a team that was really good last year, has got a very good coach and general manager in Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski, and was on the ascension, and their quarterback was heading into a huge year, they've been a very big disappointment. We had Super Bowl expectations for this football team, and with 2 weeks to go, they're fighting for the opportunity with help to get into the playoffs. They've been a massive disappointment.
And Mary Kay, I know you kind of warned an upgraded schedule. It wasn't going to be easy, but it's hard to argue. There was a lot that was expected when you looked at this roster, and for various reasons, it just hasn't come together this year.
Well, I think if you look at it, people from the outside looking in might see the whole thing as just a complete disappointment. What I see, when I look at this Browns defense right now, is a defense on the rise. And I think the future looks really, really bright. And if they can win these final 2 games and pull it off, I think it will have everything to do with the defense. As I mentioned before, 6 guys are coming back. The secondary is getting really good. Now, they don't have Tack McKinley for the rest of the season, but Jadeveon Clowney should be coming back. Myles Garrett has suffered a groin injury. It's really serious, and he probably really won't be himself in these final 2 games. But I think he can still take some extra attention away from a Jadeveon. I still think that they can get some good pressure. So I believe that it still is. Right now, I would consider it to be a championship caliber defense. There are some areas they have to clean up, like third down and things like that. But the defense is good enough to get you through some playoff games, and who knows what could happen if they get there. The offense is what hasn't been, just what anybody expected this season. In particular, obviously, the passing game for so many different reasons. Baker Mayfield's injuries, Baker Mayfield's ineffectiveness, just the tackles being hurt, and the receiving core being underwhelming this season for one reason or another. And I would also throw the tight ends in there a little bit too, whether it's because of Baker's issues or not. The pass catchers just in general haven't been what anybody expected them to be. So I would say that right now, the defensive side of the ball is poised and ready to take this team where it wants to go. And now they need the offense to show up, however they can get that to happen.
Yeah, it's tough to argue with that. I agree. The defense has been really since the Patriots game. They've been outstanding. They didn't look good in the Patriots game. They got things figured out pretty quickly. All right, this is a little disturbing, without question. Emily Mayfield, Baker's wife, posted this on Instagram, and it involves some death threats, lies being told about Baker, disrespect. Here's the thing. Anybody that thinks that Baker Mayfield doesn't care significantly more about the Browns winning than some fan is kidding themselves. Any of the players. You guys might think as fans that you're fully vested, but especially for a guy like Baker Mayfield, he literally has millions of dollars on the line, performing well and tied to the outcome of Browns games. So everybody needs to just stop with that. That's the ultimate in ridiculousness, that somebody on social media would do anything resembling that and not realize the guys that want to win most are the guys that are playing with the orange helmets that are getting beat up every Sunday.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, social media just adds another layer to everything that we do now in the entire sports field, the sports business, for players, for media, coaches, everybody. Because why? Everybody's got an opinion now. Everybody's got a voice. Everybody has a platform in which to express themselves. And some of it is good. A lot of it is bad. And that's really unfortunate. And I'm sorry that the Mayfields have to go through that. It's horrible that anybody would be, putting out death threats or anything like that would make them feel unsafe in any way. I mean, that is just, it's just not what is representative of the great Browns fans in Cleveland, Ohio. It's just not. I mean, I've covered this team for many, 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 many years. This is a town full of great fans that support their players, that forgive players, that welcome guys back. And those kinds of people are not representative. And so at times like these, when times get tough, I mean, if it were up to me, I would advise some of those people to have somebody monitor your social media for you to see if there's anything that you have to know about. And if you don't have to know about it and it's just going to take you down or impact you in a negative way, then this might be the time to try to, ignore some of the outside noise. Don't get caught up in it. Don't draw more attention to it and those kinds of things, because there are just going to be those people out there that, you can't control. It's just a nasty, unintended consequence of social media.
Yeah, I agree. And again, the guys that want to win the most and that care about it the most are the guys that are, getting beat up every Sunday and that are playing for the Browns. All right, let's head to our voicemail of Truth and Reason. This one about Baker Mayfield and the Browns.
Baker's got his work cut out for him. Sorry to hear about the death threats, and he doesn't need those. He just needs to think before he throws and use his offensive power as far as his running backs go. And I think they actually might be able to pull up a miracle here. Happy New Year. All the best. Go Browns.
All right, we appreciate the voicemails as always. Mary Carey, we've talked about this a couple of times. Play calling, and again, it's when play calling works, everybody's behind it 100%. When it doesn't work, why don't you do the other thing? What have you thought about the play calling the last couple of weeks?
Well, I'm of the mind that, like you said, when the play calling fails, then everybody has an opportunity to criticize it. And when it succeeds, then most people don't give it a second thought. So there was a lot to be said about how the last drive went. And I understand that there may have been some merit to, running the ball on 1st and 10 from the 50. But if you are identifying, or if the other team knows that you're going to do that and they're stacking the box and you get knocked back 5 yards, what's everybody going to say about that? So one of those could have possibly been a run, but what you need to be able to do is execute simple passes in that situation. And that's the true problem, I think, is that they weren't able to get the ball to David Njoku on a short out that was thrown behind him. And then on the other side to Dearness Johnson, the linebacker read that right away, knocked it down, almost could have intercepted it. And then once again, the pass that was intercepted, which almost everyone that watched that believed that Donovan Peoples-Jones had been interfered with. But in terms of trying to move and get maybe to the 20, where you would think you'd probably have needed to get to the 20. So you're looking at having to get 30 yards there. You're going to have to pass it at some point. So, as you could see, Nick Chubb was on the sidelines as well. He was gassed at that time, and he wasn't even out on the field. So, it might not have been perfect, but you would expect that, you see teams go down in a 2-minute drill and they complete short passes, and the Browns should have been able to do that.
Yeah, and again, at some point in time, you got to execute the plays. It's the same thing. Kevin Stefanski isn't sitting there going, let me see how I can make the defense stand up and stop us. He's more invested than anybody into seeing this offense gain first downs, score, and win games. Mary Kay Cabot and I are going to step aside, take a quick timeout. On the other side of the break, we'll turn our attention a little bit to the defensive side of the ball. We'll talk Myles Garrett and Denzel Ward. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. Browns and Steelers Monday night in Pittsburgh. As we have mentioned, Joel Bitonio talked a little bit about Myles Garrett being banged up, and Garrett has that groin injury, won't be anywhere near 100%. But here is Joel Bitonio talking about Myles Garrett playing through that injury.
Oh, it's awesome. He's, in my opinion, the best pass rusher in the league, and so to have him out there, even if he's not at full strength, like the defense is going to game plan for that. They're going to send two guys his way. They're going to chip him. They're going to leave other guys one-on-one. And, for Myles, like he understands, like, he's the heartbeat of our defense and he's one of, the leaders of our team. And for him to go out there and play, even if he's not 100%, like you see that with guys like Myles, guys like Baker, guys like JC, when he's out there, like these guys are going to fight for their team and for the Cleveland Browns. And, it's something that you want to see in your leaders. And
Mary Kay Bitonio makes a very valid point there. Garrett's nowhere near 100% and hasn't been. But the Steelers are going to know where he's at, and they're going to make sure that he doesn't wreck the game.
Oh, there is no question about that. They're already ready for that. Again, Myles Garrett came into the league vowing to come in and chop down Big Ben. He is going to want to do everything that he can to win this game. Winning is so vitally important to him, and he's going to basically be playing with his hair on fire. Now, he's been held sackless in each of the last 2 games. The groin injury is really bothering him, and they are going to, like you said, do everything that they possibly can to keep Myles Garrett from wrecking the game for them. And Ben does get rid of the ball very quickly, so that will help them. But still, Myles is somebody that you have to account for, and now that Jadeveon Clowney is back, that will take a little bit of pressure off Myles, and even 50% of Myles is better than 100% of most players.
All right, so ESPN.com's power rankings, Browns currently 20th, a non-quarterback MVP candidate. They list Myles Garrett. And again, it's hard to argue that. He may not get that defensive player of the year that he was kind of zeroed in for, just because, as you mentioned, that injury has hampered him a little bit down the stretch. But again, right now I think his focus is on trying to get back to the playoffs.
Yes, definitely. I mean, if he had his choice, obviously, between getting to the playoffs and winning NFL MVP, he would take the playoffs over that any day. He's become very outspoken, very vocal this season. He steps up and says things that, sometimes might ruffle some feathers or raise some eyebrows. And sometimes in finding his leadership voice, he might stumble here or there a little bit. Like when he said, right after that Patriots game that they did not make the proper sideline adjustments. That's really not what you want to hear one of your players saying. But again, he's trying to be vocal, and he's trying to make everybody live up to an incredibly high standard to get where they want to go. And I think he's done, for the most part, a pretty good job in that regard.
And that's what the Browns want from him, to be honest with you. That's what you pay a guy as much as they're paying him to be. He's the guy that sets the standard that, carries a lot more weight than if you're hearing it from a coach.
Right. And the other thing about that is that you have to be playing well in order to be that outspoken and to be that vocal. So actually, like right now, because Baker has struggled throughout the season, it is not necessarily the time for him to be being that vocal. So Myles is having the chance, people are going to listen to Myles. People are going to listen to him. And he has the floor right now because, once again, he's number 3 in the NFL, tied for number 3 in the NFL with 15 sacks. And when you're playing at that clip, you can say almost anything.
So let's turn our attention to one of the guys that is a potential contract extension guy. That would be Denzel Ward. Pro Football Focus, Brad Spielberger has projected that Denzel Ward will get a 5-year, $105 million deal at the end of the season. So $21 million a year. I think the Browns would probably sign up for that. I mean, when you look at what Denzel Ward has done, he's been everything the Browns had hoped for. I know he got off to a little bit of a slow start. Although when we pushed him on that earlier this week, he kind of pushed back and said it depends on how you're judging a slow start. Bottom line is he's been outstanding. He's been everything you want in a number 1 corner.
Yeah, it was funny because I was the one that actually asked him that question, and he did not necessarily agree with me that that he didn't get off to his usual Pro Bowl type start this season. But he was grading out pretty, at the bottom of the barrel, in a couple of games. And it just didn't seem like the kind of games you were expecting from Denzel Ward early on. And we even asked Joe Woods about that. And he said he's trying too hard. He's pressing. And he got it turned around. And as I mentioned during that interview yesterday with him, that he has been locked down since then. The second half of the season, he has been a lockdown corner. He has intercepted 3 passes in 4 weeks. One of those being a 99-yard pick 6 against Cincinnati, which seemed to really take those Bengals out of their game and rattled them to the point where they never really recovered from that. They just didn't. And I mean, that was just enormous. So I think he is well deserving of the Pro Bowl that the votes that he got last week. And I also think he's very deserving of the big, enormous extension that is coming. I don't think it'll be here before the end of the season because they're running out of time for that right now, but he will get it at some point over the next couple of months, and it's going to be big bucks. He'll end up either as the highest paid cornerback in the NFL or one of them.
Yeah, and again, we've wanted to see him stay on the field. He, for the most part, has, and he's had the production. Another guy that has really kind of stood up and played well the last couple of weeks when he's been needed, MJ Stewart. He talked about seizing the opportunity when given the playing time, and MJ Stewart's been really good in that Browns secondary when it's been beat up.
That's kind of just how my whole career has been, just being ready to take advantage of any opportunity I get. I mean, the only thing that came to my mind was like, it's my time now, That's literally the only thing, and it was just like, just take advantage of this opportunity. Because you never know, with football, you never know how many opportunities you're going to get. You don't know when your next one is coming. So any opportunity you get, you got to take full advantage of it. And, I mean, that's all I told myself.
Mary Kay, we talked about how they've been banged up on the defensive side of the ball. That's been a guy that has really played well, tackled well. There's been some coverage things, but I like what I've seen from MJ Stewart. It's hard not to.
Yeah, especially, I mean, when you think back to that Green Bay game, it just seemed like he was making play after play after play. And he was a major reason why in the second half of that football game, they held them to a field goal on their opening drive of the second half, which was huge. That kept the Browns in the game when they were down 21-12 going into halftime. And then after that, they went 3 and out, and 5 and out. And you're talking about the Green Bay Packers and Aaron Rodgers, who's playing at another MVP clip. So yes, MJ Stewart was a large part of that, and they needed him. I mean, they were without Ronnie Harrison. They were without JJ3 and Greg Newsome and Troy Hill in that game, and he stepped up big.
Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer and cleveland.com, and I are going to step aside, take one more time out. On the other side of the break, we turn our attention more to the Steelers-Browns matchup. We'll hear from Mike Tomlin on the importance of the game and dive into what some of the keys will be for the Browns to get a win that they need. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just the mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
Browns and Steelers, Monday night, Heinz Field. It will likely be Ben Roethlisberger's final home game in a Pittsburgh uniform. Still to be determined, though. Mike Tomlin talked about the importance of the Browns-Steelers matchup for both teams.
The road is getting narrow for us and for them, and I think that's a component of this that I'm going to keep talking about with our guys during the course of the work week. We've absorbed some negativity. They've absorbed some negativity. It's about getting the best out of ourselves, and I'm sure it's the same for them. And so, they're making some decisions about how they want to play ball this week, what best engineers victory for them. And so all we have is our in-stadium experience against them and what's on tape. And our in-stadium experience plus what's on tape tells us that we better work our tails off to minimize their run game and Nick Chubb, and we better not let Myles Garrett wreck it.
And Mary Kay, we've talked about that. The Steelers have done a pretty good job defensively against Nick Chubb in his career. 6 games against the Steelers. Chubb is averaging 67.5 yards, 4.3 yards a carry, which is pretty good, but just 1 rushing touchdown. So that Steelers defense, which really is not great against the run this season, even the first time, they did a good job against Nick Chubb, and you can be sure that'll be a focal point.
Yes, it will definitely be a focal point. And Nick Chubb hasn't, necessarily, and he's had a couple of really big games, but in this second half of the season, he hasn't really been able to do as much as he would have hoped. But if Kareem Hunt comes back for this game, I think that will help tremendously. He will, for the most part, have fresh legs if his ankle is okay, and he can help keep Nick Chubb, ready to roll in the fourth quarter like he does when he's not gassed. I mean, he was gassed, understandably so, in that Green Bay game. So yeah, I think that they will focus on taking Nick out. And when your passing game isn't what you want it to be, it's a little bit easier, obviously, to stack the box. And you're also going to have some guys, really ready to take it to the Cleveland Browns, like Joe Schobert, Joe Hayden. So yeah, and the other thing is they're going to want to, forget about that 48-37 loss in the wild card game in Pittsburgh. They smacked those guys down in that game, and I think that they're going to want to try to get that memory out of their heads.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see how that game unfolds at the beginning of it. So let's put some numbers to what we have said about the Steelers and their run defense. So they've allowed the most yards per carry in the NFL at almost 4.8. I've also allowed the most 20-plus yards rushes in the league. So again, that sets up for the Browns' run game. But again, if you're the Steelers, the Browns want to run it, so you're going to load up the box. The other thing that Kevin Stefanski unveiled is the reverses to Anthony Schwartz. And the reason you do that is you feel people are kind of over pursuing and kind of cheating. So those reverses with a guy that's speed are aimed at, okay, don't cheat. Don't overcommit to stopping Nick Chubb.
Yeah, you know what? I mean, that could really come in handy. Anthony Schwartz can come in handy in this game, both in running those, reverses, jet sweeps, and also being able to stretch the field, which they really haven't been able to do very well lately. So yeah, I would, definitely try some of that. Do whatever you can do to take advantage of the fact that the Steelers aren't what they usually are against the run this season. But as I mentioned before, sometimes if a team is playing with a lot of extra emotion, and I think they will be, not just because it could be Ben's last game and everything is on the line, but because they were so humiliated and beaten down by those Kansas City Chiefs. They've got a lot to prove. And it's on Monday Night Football. It's national television. And I think they're going to bring their A game.
Yeah, I would agree. It will not be easy without question. So what do the Browns have to do to get the win in this? What do they need to avoid in order to beat the Steelers and get a much-needed win on Monday night?
Well, I think the defense is going to have to play the way that it has been playing and try to get some takeaways. The defense, once again, if you have your full complement of guys in the secondary, and if you've got Miles and Jadavian and JOK, I'm very impressed with this defense right now. And I think that they can hang with and shut down, a lot of offenses, not every single offense in the NFL. Not exactly sure how they would do against the Chiefs right now, but I think they can manage the Steelers offense for sure. And then you're going to have to be able to run that ball. I mean, you've got, with a combination of Nick and Kareem and Dearness Johnson, you're going to have to rely on those things because you're just not sure if your passing game is going to be what you need it to be. And the Steelers, if TJ Watt is healthy, he cracked some ribs against the Titans 2 weeks ago, but if he's healthy and he's coming off that edge the way that he can, as a bona fide NFL Defensive Player of the Year candidate, he's a game wrecker in his own right. And the Browns obviously have some tackle situations that are a little bit challenging this season. And if TJ gets rolling, he can kind of get the game out of hand for you in a hurry. So they need to manage him as well as they can.
Yeah, and again, they got to avoid the turnovers. We saw what those do to a team that isn't throwing the ball and able to overcome it in that Packers game. So just kind of a gut feeling. Do you think the Browns are able to get it done against the Steelers on Monday night?
think they can. I absolutely think they can. And the only way that they wouldn't is if the emotion of Ben's last game takes over and everybody plays way, way, way over their heads. Remember the emotion that the Browns played with when Juju Smith-Schuster gave them the motivation that they needed before that playoff game? Well, the same thing could happen to the Steelers if Ben gives them the win one for the Gipper speech before the game. And everybody in that whole entire stadium knows that it's his last game there. So if that's the case, then the Steelers, might be able to steal this one. But from a talent standpoint, the Browns should be able to win, and I actually think they will.
You think the beginning of this game is kind of critical and I know you can't expect the Browns to come out and do what they did in that playoff game in Pittsburgh and get out to a 28-0 lead. But I think as long as it doesn't get away and you let the emotion lead to a couple of big plays early, I think that's kind of what you want if you're a Browns player or fan.
Yeah, the Browns don't want to get behind because they don't pass well to get back into a game. So they don't want to fall behind. And as you mentioned, a big play early can change everything, the way that it did in that playoff game. And again, the way that it did in the early going against the Bengals with that 99-yard pick six. So if you can get a couple of those kinds of plays early on and sort of take that crowd out of the game, because it will be very, very loud. When they played that playoff game in the wild card game, they did not have fans in the stands. So it's going to be a different atmosphere, a playoff atmosphere. Again, Monday Night Football, everything on the line. It doesn't get any better than this.
Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer, as well as cleveland.com. As always, thank you so much for the time and the insight. Appreciate it very much, Mary Kay.
My pleasure.
All right, Mary Kay Cabot, make sure you read her pages, The Plain Dealer, as well as cleveland.com. We're a step aside. Take a quick time out. On the other side of the break, we will continue to talk Browns as they get ready for the Steelers. We'll hear more from MJ Stewart and talk a little bit more about the Browns defense. Sports for CLE. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Welcome back. Back to new friends, new classroom, and learning new things. Back to wearing shoes, man, like real shoes. Back to rushing to class. Back to having questions. Lots of questions. Back to vending machine dinners. Back to too much caffeine, too late at night, but feeling like it was a night well spent. Back to pursuing your dreams and taking control of your future. Come back to go forward. Tri-C, where futures begin.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
I am powerful beyond my wildest imagination.
I will define my future.
I will keep challenging myself to improve.
Because I am a future leader of this great nation.
I will be responsible for raising a beautiful family.
And educating not only my generation, but many more to come.
I will make a difference in my community.
And I will stand up for what I believe in.
I will not settle for simply chasing my dreams. I will achieve them.
Because I was given a chance.
An opportunity.
A home.
At Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America.
The ultimate leadership experience.
FCCLA has been one of the greatest experiences of my life.
It's made me who I am today.
Join us. We'll build a new future together.
We continue talking Browns, getting ready for a Monday night matchup with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Emmanuel Acho from Speak for Yourself on FS1 talked about what he sees with the current version of Baker Mayfield.
I'm tired of seeing Baker Mayfield. I'm tired of seeing this version of Baker Mayfield. If the Browns continue to employ Baker Mayfield, this version as a starter, they are being negligent to their football team. They are undermining the work of the coaches, of the players, of the staff, and of the fans. If the Browns continue to employ this version of Baker Mayfield, then Every post-practice rep is in vain. Every film watching session is in vain. All those smoothies that you drink after your workouts to build up your muscles, that's in vain. Every offseason workout has been in vain because this version of Baker Mayfield is not conducive to winning games for the Cleveland Browns. Again, I was drafted to Cleveland. I've been on the Baker Mayfield train for as long as one can possibly be on it. But after watching that game, I realized the Browns are handicapped. They're trying to fight with both their hands tied. Baker Mayfield threw 4 interceptions in 36 passes. That's 1 interception every 9 passes on Saturday. Aaron Rodgers has thrown 4 interceptions in 475 passes. Baker Mayfield did one thing every 9 times that Aaron Rodgers does once every 120 times. It is not a fair fight.
Let's welcome in Ashley Bastock, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer and cleveland.com. Ashley, the only thing I can say is Kevin Stefanski, Andrew Berry, and the Browns aren't going to send Baker Mayfield out there if they think somebody else gives them a better chance to win. The only reason they keep sending him out there, they feel, and they would know better than anybody. And I think Emmanuel Acho is really good. I think he's a really well-spoken guy. I think he's talented. But the Browns don't send Baker Mayfield out there unless they think he gives them the best chance to win.
Yeah, I think my colleague Doug Lesmerises likes to say, like, between Baker Mayfield and Case Keenum, who has the higher ceiling on any given day to maybe give you an explosive performance? And I think in a lot of ways right now, the Browns have just kind of thought that that's Baker for many reasons. And I think it's important to remember that Case Keenum is not necessarily that same guy that he was in Minnesota who won those playoff games for the Vikings. So that's first and foremost. But look, I think anyone who's watched Baker Mayfield this year recognizes that he does not look the same as he did in the second half of last season. And there's only 2 more games for him to turn that around. And quite honestly, with the way the Steelers match up with the Browns, I think they kind of match up with the Browns offense fairly well, that Steelers defense. So I think they definitely need a little bit of that second half of 2020 magic from Baker Mayfield if they're going to win this game on Monday. And obviously, if you win on Monday, you absolutely have to win against the Bengals the following week. And that's if the Bengals don't win before you even play the Steelers on Monday. So there's a lot of moving parts here, but I think it's obviously safe to say that they need more from Baker Mayfield than what they got against the Packers on Christmas Day, because the reality is Cleveland almost won that game in spite of Baker's 4 interceptions, not necessarily because of anything he did.
Yeah, that's a well stated and a very fair assessment of Baker Mayfield in that performance. One guy who has stepped in on the defensive side of the ball and has been as good, if not better, than you could hope for, MJ Stewart. Plays a little bit of corner, plays a little bit of safety, sideline to sideline. He talked about his versatility and kind of his attitude out on the field. Here's MJ Stewart.
It's kind of like a pride thing, I just, felt like in college I played a lot of positions. I played, corner. I played nickel. I played safety. Last time I played safety was like in high school, honestly. But it's a position that I'm going into now, and I like it too. So, I just take pride in just being versatile. I just run and hit, honestly. I just run and hit for real. But but when you have those open field tackles, it's really one-on-one, it's mano-a-mano. So, it's either like you win or they win, and I want to win all the time. So that's really all I can say about that.
And Ashley, he's been really good. I mean, I see him out on the field, and I'm like, let's see more of MJ Stewart. And that's not to say anything bad about the guys that are the starters. Tackles well, seems to be all over the field.
Yeah, he really has that same kind of movement style. I guess that when you watch JOK, how you're like, oh, that guy's all over the place. Like, very similar style for MJ Stewart, just obviously more in that backfield a little bit. But I just think his performance these last couple of weeks is kind of such a testament to where the defense is. I mean, we think about all the pieces that are missing still for them against the Packers, against the Raiders. No John Johnson III against the Packers. No Greg Newsome. Tack McKinley, not necessarily a starter, but a huge piece of that defense and what they're trying to do up front. So there's a ton of big name guys out. Jadeveon Clowney still just recently got activated the other day. So we should hopefully see him coming up against the Steelers. But all of these big names that have been out for the Browns, the fact that a guy like MJ Stewart can come in and produce the way he has, really the defense hasn't missed a beat. I think it's a testament to the culture that they've created. I think it's a testament to Joe Wood's system. And, we talked earlier in the season about, I really think these guys just needed some time to play together and get some reps together and get everything going with people healthy. And I think now that we're seeing that the backup guys have developed some of that chemistry as well. And I think with some of those key guys missing, with Myles Garrett obviously playing through that groin injury that really seemed to be affecting him on Christmas Day against the Packers, I think you need guys like that to step up if this defense is going to keep producing the way that it has post that Patriots game in November.
Yeah, and that kind of leads me to where I was going. How good do you think the defense has been since the Patriots game? I mean, it's tough to come up. They've got to be a top 10, top 5 defense since that. And the Patriots game was not good. I mean, let's say they gave up 45 points, so that wasn't good. But since that game, they've been pretty elite.
They really have. And I know Mary Kay Cabot likes to say that this defense is playing championship caliber football right now. And I definitely agree with her. Like, there's not much that they are doing wrong. And if the Browns are going to win these last 2 games, I don't think it's going to be because the offense has had some miracle turnaround. Now, the offense is going to have to improve if they're going to win these last 2 games, but I really think it's going to be because the defense is playing at this same kind of caliber. They've just truly been phenomenal. I was worried after that Patriots game about how they were going to respond. And, they were talking about things like Myles Garrett made the comment about them not making in-game adjustments. John Johnson III made the comment about it was like the Patriots watched everything the Browns defense struggled with in the first half of the season and just did that repetitively. No other team has been able to effectively mimic that game plan. I think the Lions were the ones who really tried and just don't have the talent to do it. And the defense really hasn't tripped up since then. So I think overall, they're just going to be the phase of the game for the Browns this year. If the Browns make the playoffs, it's going to be because of your defense and how well they've played these recent weeks.
Ashley Bastock, Browns beat reporter for cleveland.com, as well as the Plain Dealer, and I are going to step aside to take one more time out. On the other side of the break, we'll turn our attention more to the Steelers game. What do the Browns need to do on offense and on defense to come away with a much-needed win Monday night in Pittsburgh? Sports4CLE. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Welcome back. Back to new friends, new classroom, and learning new things. Back to wearing shoes, man, like real shoes. Back to rushing to class. Back to having questions. Lots of questions. Back to vending machine dinners. Back to too much caffeine, too late at night, but feeling like it was a night well spent. Back to pursuing your dreams and taking control of your future. Come back to go forward. Try C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns, getting ready for the Pittsburgh Steelers, a Monday night game in Pittsburgh. Browns hoping that if they win that Monday night game, if things break right on Sunday, if they win Monday night, it's a win and you're in Week 18 as far as the playoffs go. Let's welcome back in Ashley Bastock, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer, as well as cleveland.com. So, Ashley, what do you think the game plan is? We've seen Baker Mayfield struggle against the Packers. Now, he didn't have any practice, and could be a good thing because you might be a little more physically healed. But what do you think the Browns need to do offensively? We'll start there.
Well, I will say between the Packers and the Steelers, the one thing that worries me with regards to the Steelers compared to the Packers is that defensive front and what they can do, especially obviously TJ Watt and having to contend with him. I think last time the Steelers just did a really good job of making Baker Mayfield uncomfortable. They don't let him get those little kickouts and things like that. A lot of teams haven't let Baker get that so far this year. So I don't know what I think they're going to do, but one has to wonder if you may look at game plans similar to what the Colts do right now and how much they let Jonathan Taylor run. And do you let Nick Chubb just kind of take over, essentially? Nick Chubb had a really phenomenal game on Saturday against the Packers. So if he can keep some of that momentum going, hopefully that would maybe throw off some of the focus on Baker Mayfield in the pass game here. But it's definitely a tough thing, just knowing how broken this pass game for the Browns has been this year. There's no denying it. It doesn't really resemble anything we saw in the best moments of 2020. So I'll be curious if they also scrap some of that 13 personnel like we saw against the Packers, where they were running a lot more 11 personnel, getting the receivers downfield, and if those looks are there for them to maybe kind of open things up for Nick Chubb on the ground. And we saw all kinds of things that we haven't seen in a while, like Anthony Schwartz running an end around, a reverse, like doing those kind of things. I think that fans have really been clamoring for and wanting to see. So it seemed like there was, despite the loss and the interceptions, a little more imagination, I guess I want to say, in terms of the play calling. And we can debate the end of the game, but I do think things looked a little different for me against the Packers, and I hope some of that kind of carries over against the Steelers.
Yeah, I agree. The one thing that I really liked is a couple of screens, and be it Nick Chubb, even if you do it to Anthony Schwartz, you get your guys that can run out in space with the ball. And think of what teams do to Myles Garrett. They screen the side that he's on because they know he's going to be aggressive. Do the same thing. If you want to put TJ Watt and turn him loose, screen to his side.
Yeah, and that's the thing that has been, I think, so impressive about Nick Chubb recently is his willingness to get more involved in that pass game with Kareem Hunt out. And I think we really saw that in the Packers. He got involved in the pass game early. He had that 40-yard run, I think it was, on the first drive at the end of the game on, I think, what ended up being the Browns' last drive before that last interception. He got that first down at the 50. That was like a 6-yard passing play. So there are ways, I think, to do this and get Nick Chubb more touches and get your playmakers the ball in ways that are going to be effective for everyone involved.
When you look at the Steelers' offense, what do you need to do if you are the Browns' defense to have success?
Well, the biggest thing about this game that has made me, I'll say, nervous for the last few weeks is kind of knowing what the Browns are walking into, right? Like, we all know this is probably going to be Ben Roethlisberger's last home game in Pittsburgh. Don't let Big Ben become the hero, because I'm sure he would love nothing more than to crush the Browns' playoff hopes one final time, especially after that playoff game last year. So I think it really comes down to that. For me, it's kind of an X factor. And I know if you watch the Steelers this past week, you're probably thinking I'm a little crazy for even thinking this is a possibility. But never say never when an atmosphere is going to be like this one. It's why this game has kind of been on my radar since the beginning of the season, just knowing this was a possibility. And I really think you can't underestimate him in going into this atmosphere with what's at stake and everything. So I definitely think for me, that's one of the biggest keys, is to just not let him be a hero. Do what you're supposed to do and just take care of business.
Do you have a feeling? Do you have a gut feeling one way or another? Do you think the Browns get what they need in that win? It's basically an elimination game. The Steelers are still alive in the AFC North. The Browns are still alive. The loser of this game is done. Do you have a gut feeling about it?
For the first time, I don't know if I really have an accurate gut feeling this season. Like, this game has made me, I've said, on our podcast too, that this game was the one besides the Packers game that I was most nervous about with this team, knowing what would probably be at stake. I will say, like, rationally, I think the Browns have more talent. I think the Steelers are broken. The Browns should win this one. If they don't, it's going to come down to some of those X factor things that I was just talking about. If Ben Roethlisberger just plays out of his mind and they really send him out the right way. Now, Cleveland hasn't done a lot of winning in Pittsburgh in recent years, so I know the Browns are fairly motivated, and they know we're at the point in the season where this is a must-win game, and that's not hyperbolic to say. They need to win this game, where they are very likely, it's done. So I think there's a lot at stake here. My rational thinking is telling me that the Browns should pull this one out, but obviously there's a lot more at play here this week than in a lot of our previous weeks.
Ashley Bastock, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer, as well as cleveland.com. Ashley, as always, thanks so much for the time and the insight.
Thank you.
All right, Ashley Bastock. Make sure you read her in the pages of the Plain Dealer as well as cleveland.com. That'll do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. We will see you back here tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Scheduled guests, the D-Man, Dennis Maniloff from WTAM News Radio 1100, and Sam Amico from hoopswire.com. That is tomorrow, 4 o'clock on Sports for CLE. We'll see you then. Have a great night, everybody.